my God, a new Chris Dangerfield video just came out. I can't wait to watch it.
Hello people, we got another Warren Smith Secret Secular Society reaction video. Warren has called this video "Student Claims Colleges Are Too White," and the professor exposes the truth. Now, if you don't know Sam Richards has made he's made ripples in the sort of education arena, because he's a professor at Penn State and he streams his lectures live. I don't know if they're live actually, but they go out on the internet and they've got quite a big following. I think that's a good thing. I think all universities should be forced to do that. You know, if you're charging students, what is it now, $100,000, whatever, massive amounts of money that they have to borrow to be lumbered with for the rest of their life for their largely useless degrees, you should at least be able to see the product you're getting. I think it should be standard procedure for universities to be streaming at least 5 lectures a week. It's not hard to do. I mean, I can do it. I mean, yes, the sound's not great. Oh, and the lighting's not too good. Hang on, let's sort that out. Why? It's just after saying it's not hard to do. Anyway, I've actually already watched this. I usually like to watch it with you, so to speak. But there's one part of it that really sticks out that I'm going to talk about. So I'll try not to say too much so this video doesn't go on forever, because it's already a 9-minute video. But anyway, Sam Richards, Penn State, Warren Smith's Secret Secular Society, roll VT.
So Sam Richards is back.
So can we have our 3 volunteers?
The only professor that I know of who is live streaming his lectures. This student jumps in and she claims that Harvard is just extremely excessively white.
When it comes to like at least Harvard, like it's really white. I don't know. Like,
and Sam Richards points out the flaw here.
it's
Before he gets a chance to pour that, I mean, it's really excessively white. There's no numbers, there's no data, which is sort, I guess, all right at the start of a conversation. But if that's your premise, be prepared to have it torn to pieces. Really excessively. You think there's a lot of white people there. I mean, there's a lot of white people in America though. But, you know, they're only students, they're not that bright. So what do you expect?
really white. I don't know. Like,
And Sam Richards points out the flaw here.
it's
Actually, it's not that white.
not that white.
No. No, look.
What is the population that is white versus black versus Latino? We would expect that the student makeup would reflect those demographics. That would be perfectly logical. But
Well, actually, I'm going to stop you there, Warren, because we would perhaps expect the demographics to be reflected if it wasn't for things like affirmative action, which actually doesn't reflect the demographics. It actually replaces certain demographics with other demographics who have to score less on tests to get in. And of course there's quotas as well. So I'd argue that point, but that's not really what I'm getting at in this reaction. But certainly something to bear in mind.
if the student makeup would reflect those demographics, that would be perfectly logical. But it's not even a reflection of that.
37% Asian,
That's very Asian.
16% Hispanic, 14% black. It's
Did you hear that? The Asian fella go, that's very Asian.
37% Asian,
That's very Asian.
16% Hispanic, 14% black. It's like whites are a minority.
Then she,
Boom! So she premise, well, it wasn't a premise, it was a hypothesis actually. She suggested that it was excessively, that was the word, excessively really white. And it turns out that whites are a minority in Harvard. Now, where's she going to go from here? Because what an honest person, and I've made videos about this, what an honest person who wants to learn would say, oh, I got that wrong. Why did I get that wrong? Where did I get that information from? Why was I so sure? Why did I go in with such gusto? No, it's really white at Harvard. You know, she was so sure of herself. She's sitting in front of a big theatre about, I think it's about 700 students. So an honest, critically thinking person would say, okay, well, this is interesting. So why did I have that belief? Do you think she's going to do that?
16% Hispanic, 14% black. It's like whites are a minority.
Then she just completely changes the argument.
When it comes to black people, at least within our own communities, right?
Okay.
We don't see like us going to Ivy Leagues as much as like our white peers.
Right, I don't even know what that means. I'm trying to work it out as much. Let me hear it again. Let's hear that again.
Changes the argument.
When it comes to black people, at least within our own communities, right?
Okay.
We don't see like us going to Ivy Leagues as much as like our white peers.
What is
We, in our own communities, it's just so abstract at this point. It's just now. It doesn't mean anything.
See like us going to Ivy Leagues as much as like our white peers.
what is my community? I don't know anyone in my community who went to Harvard.
Yeah, where I come from, about 5 people went to university back in the day when only clever people went to university. When you weren't a client, you know, you got selected because you were bright. I was one of that 5.
People I grew up with, is that my community? I don't know anyone in my community who went to Harvard. People I grew up with, is that my community? None of them went to Harvard.
Exactly, it's so abstract. I mean, she's gone from a weak as hell hypothesis to just abstract delusion. And, well, let's see where it goes.
Or is that a problem?
Okay.
Because I went to a white high school and they got into more Ivies than all the black students, and like we applied there.
I can't even work that out. You went to a white high school and they got into more universities. Who's the they in that sentence? If it's a white high school, then the chances of white people going to university, I'd suggest, would be quite high. Wow. I mean, she's falling apart here, but the indoctrination, and this is what I want to talk about, the narrative, which is usually in the days of the legacy media, is opposed to the truth. The narrative has told her all of this. The media has told her all of this. You know, activism and activist groups have told her all this. You know, she's not worried. If I was her now, I'd be thinking, oh my God, you know, I'm trying to defend this nonsense, but I don't know where to go. But she's absolutely sure of herself, because that's the power of the narrative. That's the power of propaganda. That's why there was a time in the Second World War when they sent a lot of bomber planes over to Germany. One of those planes had more camera equipment in it than it did munitions, because they realised there's not much point in bombing civilians unless you can show the people back home.
And they got into more Ivies than all the black students, and like we applied there too.
Okay.
I have no peers that went to an Ivy League.
So sometimes it's like not always true. And like, what about the other white people that
No,
have the
but
same
there's an
stats?
assumption that you just made right there.
But that student points it out, that exact point.
I grew up in a very white community too, and we had very few minority people.
Mate, you're really letting the white people down holding that microphone like a rapper. That's why we can't hear you. That's not my bad recording, people. That's him giving it the boom boom booba jabba. I don't know what boom booba jabba means.
Or the minority people went at Ivy Leagues than my white friends.
Yeah, I mean what you
So
just
it's not just that. It's different everywhere.
Yeah, but what you just said, you said because we don't know if the white students performed at the same level as the black and brown students. So like we don't know that. So that's an assumption we have to be careful to make.
Incredible point. I mean, not incredible actually. Basic. You know, if you're narrowing down your sources to your school, like what is that? Like what, 1,000 kids? We don't know whether some students were better than others. We've got nothing. We've got no metrics to go on. So you really shouldn't base your assumed worldview on a very small source pool, which is what she done.
We're going to see where that goes off the rails here.
If things aren't equal,
I think that's Sam Richards' wife. I think Warren says it later.
if we're all not meted out with equal gifts and curses and whatever, then at least life should at least be fair. And I just want it to be fair.
What is equality? Equality is equal opportunity.
But wasn't affirmative action an attempt to address inequality and create equity?
Equality is equal opportunity. Equity is equal outcome. As long as we have equal opportunity, we will never have equal outcome.
How is affirmative action an attempt to bring about greater equity? How's it work in college admissions?
She knows where he wants to go here.
People from a higher class, like upper middle class, are.
No, hang on. I'm going to help you. The word you were going to use and you didn't use that you were looking for is historically disadvantaged groups.
Yes, yeah.
But this is
Right, and for me and Warren, this is where it gets really interesting. He give him a buzzword, he give him a phrase that's been pushed at these kids probably for the last 10 years.
Historically disadvantaged groups.
Yes, yeah.
but this is the language you're going to encounter. It's the framing of historically disadvantaged groups.
And like the kids on the reservation are working so hard as they can, and they're spinning, and the schools are really bad, and there are no role models, and they don't have money.
If you want to look at it through socioeconomic lens, I'm all for it.
How's affirmative action going to help bring about greater equality?
It's a great question, but again, it's not really what I'm interested in this video, but we'll follow along with it.
Greater, how's it, yeah, no, we're not going to touch fairness yet. How's it going to bring about greater equality?
I think it's just
Right, she starts talking before she's thought about it. I don't think she's ever had to think about it. In her world, listen to the words, it goes without saying. Yeah, and there's another idiom that fits this. It speaks for itself. So to actually be questioned, I mean, surely affirmative action is a good thing. It's got to be, of course it is. So when she's actually questioned, she has to speak. If she's honest, she says, I don't know. I haven't thought about it. Because I just, it helps out my community, the one she referred to earlier. But rather than do that, she'll try and wing it.
How's it going to bring about greater equality?
I think it's just the fact that it takes into consideration certain historical and societal things that have happened in the country.
And then?
It's not what you have done and said, your actions, but the actions of your ancestors and others' ancestors.
Like,
You're literally going to get a place at an Ivy League university because something happened to your granddad. Just think about that. That is it. It's balmy.
for example, like if you're black, it takes into consideration that, like the data we saw earlier about the median, that like you may have not grown up in a neighborhood, for example, that had certain programs in place at your high school.
There is an assumption of your socioeconomic status, and this is what reveals the inherent racism of equity.
When they
Boom.
see that you're black on your application, they can be like, maybe they didn't have as many opportunities as the white person that grew up in an affluent neighborhood.
All right.
What, in 1885 or something?
So this leads to viewing people through the lens of group identity, hence
Identity politics.
group identity politics.
I want to ask a question. Arjun, can you look at her and
Right, this is really why I've made this video, this next section. We've already touched on narrative and propaganda, and we've already touched on things that go without saying and speaks for itself. And all of that wraps up beautifully here. I mean, the power of the narrative is about to expose itself. And this narrative is working all the way through our education system, all the way through our media, all the way through our judiciary, and all the way through our law enforcement. So bear that in mind when you see what happens here.
All right.
This leads to viewing people through the lens of group identity, hence group identity politics.
I want to ask a question. Arjun, can you look at her and see, do you know what her ancestry is?
And look at the student's response. They're like, wait, am I even allowed to do that?
Yeah, and that is it. I'm going to play it again because you can hear, if you listen carefully, you can hear the audience, and they're not mic'd up, but you can hear a slight, ooh, he went there, he's going there. And it makes them uncomfortable because the narrative makes them comfortable. Liberalism makes you comfortable. And when the rug is being pulled out of that, not so much. Quite the opposite, in fact.
Can you look at her and see,
Listen.
do you know what her ancestry is?
And look at the student's
Did you
response.
hear
They're
it?
like, wait, am I even allowed to do that?
Am I allowed to do that?
Yeah. Incredible. And that's it in a nutshell, really. Am I allowed to do that? This is a university, it's Penn State, it's a lecture, and this Asian kid nervously smiling, like, am I allowed to do that? Am I allowed to ask questions? How the fuck are you meant to learn if you can't even ask basic questions like that? And if you're not allowed to, can you imagine what it's like off stage? Can you imagine what it's like in their social arena? If they feel like this in what's meant to be a critical thinking situation, imagine what it's like at parties. Imagine what it's like in cafes. Imagine what it's like when they're just hanging around. The narrative wins, the propaganda wins, the indoctrination wins. There is no questioning it. There is no asking questions. And that's why they will stay stupid.
Am I allowed to do that?
Yeah, dude.
She's making a point here.
Do you think you're not allowed to do that?
I mean, isn't like assuming like that? Like, isn't that like the thing that's like, yeah.
See, hey, white people.
Isn't that like the thing? That was his answer. That was his response. That's a student thinking critically. Isn't that like the thing? I mean, it's kind of vague, mate. What he's essentially saying is, isn't that verboten? Isn't it forbidden to question the narrative? Isn't that something we're not allowed to do? Ask questions. It's shocking, really, and it's more shocking in this context.
Like that? Like, isn't that like the thing that's like, yeah.
See, hey, white people, it's not just us that has learned that we're not supposed to look at people and make assumptions. Everybody has taken that on.
Yes, but we all make assumptions in life. It's how we navigate the world. Assumptions based upon our past experiences, the stories that we encounter, that's not going to go away.
Dude, you're allowed to. This is a class on race relations. You can look at people's faces. You can look at Colin. You can look at her. You can look at...
The insanity that a lecturer has to tell people that it's I mean, he's not even going as far as he should. You without a doubt, you make assumptions. You look at someone and your brain goes into overdrive to protect you, so that you can get an understanding of what might happen in this encounter. And because you need to know as much about the situation and the people involved as possible to ensure that you get the best out of it. It's a fight for resources, and resources are intellectual as well as simple things like food and housing. And the lecturer has to say, no, it is all right. It is all right to do that. That's the lesson he's teaching them. Imagine needing to be taught that. I went to university 30 years ago, That was just accepted. That was just basic. You're allowed to look at someone and make assumptions. They might be wrong, but they might be right. But you need you need to start somewhere. Anyway, I'm going to stop it there. I'll leave a link to Warren's full video because there's another 5 minutes of it and it's definitely worth watching. I'll leave a link in the description. Thanks a lot, people. Look after yourselves. Take care and ta-da. Oh, I'm streaming tonight at 5 o'clock UK time with the Iconoclast. It'll be good to see you there. They're good streams. Ta-da!
This video, like, share and subscribe. Bye bye.
Sweet, sweet.